So the key to dog training is being consistent, making sure you're following through with everything. So when Mango tries to wander off and do something that you have not asked him to do, just get him back into behavior. Follow through with what you're asking him to do. I know that you have a smaller dog, and so even if they're similar energy levels, there's such a sharp contrast between the two because of size. Place. Good boy. So Mango, again, he is little dog, puppy mentality, and a big adult body. So everything that he does is so embellished because he's so big. So just his little rambunctious jumping around and being silly and trying to make you chase him, all of those stuff are puppy behaviors, but he is in an adult dog body, so it seems very disobedient. So we want to help him be successful. We want to show him where his reinforcements are, where his successes are, and we want to correct things that we don't like. We want to make them unsuccessful. So I like to have a really place. Hi. Good boy. Down. Mango down. I like to have, I know I'm talking, a really healthy balance between reward and reinforcing things, and then showing him through pressure and pressure release things that you don't like and you don't want him to do. So I do believe we got over our marker system. I'm going to just kind of breeze through it. Mango is very conditioned to a clicker, so if you have any questions on that, it's something I really use when we're going to new situations where he's unsure of things that we're encountering. So we went to Home Depot the other day, which I will include a video of that. We went to Home Depot, and when we first got there, there was a lot of people with masks, go figure, and they were saying, "Hey buddy," and he got really kind of nervous and did his big boy work. So when he would look at people, I would click with the clicker, and then he knows what that means, so he would turn back to me to get his reinforcements. So I use that to shape a new association with those scary things. So instead of letting him be frantic or anything like that, I made it a good thing. And I really use that when we're out walking if he's seeing something that he's reactive to, whether it's good or bad reactions. If he's seeing something that's new information, he's excited about it, I click the acknowledgement of it, and that puts the reinforcement on me, so it turns it to where I'm the more reinforcing thing. So when he comes back to get his reinforcement, even if you don't have food, it can be play, it can be a toy. So play is going to be kind of running backwards and pushing him around and letting him jump around and be silly, affection, scratches, things like that. Something that is exciting for him, and it's making you more exciting than whatever new information it is that you encounter out in your walks. And it's really hard to do. It's really a skill to be able to play with your dog and work really hard to be more exciting than things that are happening organically in nature. So people walking by you, dogs, cats, birds, squirrels, whatever. You have to work a little bit harder. Just you by yourself, or even just you with food, is not always exciting. If he's really excited to see something, you putting a cookie in his face isn't going to be that big of a deal. He's pretty food motivated, so it might be, but you, instead of just offering him a cookie, offering him the cookie and then making him chase it around a little bit, is going to tap into that prey drive. So you're coming at this with multiple different drives that he has: food drive, prey drive, play drive, all of those things. So clicker training is something I really use for that. I will include a sheet on using the clicker for counter conditioning in your packet. And again, I think that we should get together. We can kind of go over that in more detail. The other markers that I use are going to be the word good and the word okay. Good is something that I use to build duration. So if I put him in behavior, if I tell him to sit, I always use sit as an example. When I tell him to sit, as soon as he goes into a sit, I say good to mark that moment in time. As I move around or new information around us is introduced and he is successful in remaining in his sit, I'm going to say the word good to show him that I like that he's in that behavior. So right now he's in this place and good, so I'm talking, I'm ignoring him, I'm not really engaging with him, and it's really good. It's hard for him to be laying down over there without me giving him constant feedback. It's really good for him. It's hard, again, it's hard for him because he wants to be involved and he wants to be sniffing around and doing other things. So Good is gonna build that duration, and then when he's not yet done with his behavior, his release word is going to be okay, to mark that moment, that terminal marker. It's gonna mark that moment that he's okay with coming out of the behavior. But I'm gonna put him back into his place because I didn't release him. Mango, he's protesting. Come on, come on. And I'm not gonna give in. He's laying, I don't know if you could tell on the camera, but he is flat out on his stomach. I'm going to get him, I'm going to make sure we are successfully getting him on his place. Come on, Mango. Come on. Place. He just started this earlier this week that he decided that he doesn't like his place. Good. So I did not release the pressure. I'm going to go over pressure in a second. I did not release that pressure, the tension of the leash, until he was showing me the behavior that I wanted. Because he was not standing and completely protesting, I had to put a little bit more pressure than I would have liked to get him on here, but I know that the end goal of the place is not something harmful to him, so I'm okay with making him do that. Which one? Okay. It's this terminal marker. There we go. So I say okay, and then a little bit of a brief pause before I move. Okay, to signal him that he can come off of his place. But I'm going to put him back on here. Bingo. Nope. Come on. Place. Very good. Down. Thank you. Good terminal, or good is the duration marker. Okay is the terminal marker. And I say it all cheery so that way it's different than normal conversational okays. And then no or no and are going to be our infraction markers. So if he goes to get all fidgety like he's about to come off, I'm going to say no or to hopefully stop him. I want him to respond to those verbal cues before having to use physical cues. And that's really big when we're leash walking. If he starts getting a little bit of a head, I like to say no to allow him to fix it before I apply any other forms of pressure. Easy good boy. So pressure, leash pressure, spatial pressure, e-collar pressure, those are all going to be forms of asking him to do something. So we apply pressure when we need him to do something, need him to fix something. The pressure comes off when he is showing us the behavior that we want. So it is important that the pressure does not come off until you have the behavior that you want. Otherwise you can reward the wrong behavior. I always like to caveat into making sure that the pressure that you apply is appropriate, because you don't want to overdo it and then come to a crossroads of you put too much pressure and now your dog is freaking out. You can either tarnish the relationship or the behavior, make it a sour experience, or you can prematurely release and then your dog possibly learn to, good boy, to throw a tantrum just to get out of even the slightest bit of pressure. So leash pressure is literally just tension in the leash. So if he starts pulling forward, I will usually place, good boy, do a guidance backwards until he is back where I want him, and I release the pressure when he is where I want him to be. Spatial pressure is using your space, I don't know how I want to word this, your presence as a pressure source. So dogs, how they communicate naturally is through body posture. So you may see dogs that are being friendly and showing that they come in peace. They will greet each other from the side. So it's a very calm, pleasant gesture. A dog that is being a little bit more confrontational, they will face each other front on. So when I'm adding spatial pressure, I'm making sure that I'm presenting my front and I'm moving into him. So adding pressure is me moving into Mango. And then when he backs off or when he does what I want him to do, that is when I stop moving forward or back off a little bit. So there shouldn't actually be like a physical contact. We're not kicking him or moving him forward. It's just saying, I need you to back up a little bit. I guess like my description kind of makes it seem like I'm storming Mango, but really I'm just asking for him to give me a little bit of space. I think, especially with Homeboy over here, it's very important to advocate for your space because he is not naturally aware of it. He likes to jump around, he likes to body slam, all of those things. So you need to make sure that you are going out of your way to advocate for your space and to create space between you and Mango through spatial pressure to teach him that respect with you. He doesn't do that stuff as much with me because I've already established it from day one of meeting him that he's not allowed to crowd my space. If I'm sitting down and he comes and he starts climbing on me, I will stand up and move him back through spatial pressure. If he doesn't respond to spatial pressure, I will use a little bit of the leash to back him off. If I need to, just kind of move him with my hand. I want to make sure that he knows that when I ask for space, I absolutely have to have it. So make sure that you're making it a point. Like in the beginning, all of these things, like you're going out of your way in the beginning to teach, so that way it's just natural for him as he gets older, because he's going to, I don't know if he's going to get bigger, but he's already big, so we don't want him being rambunctious and being rude and crowding your space and knocking you over and running past you through doorways. We don't want him thinking that's an acceptable behavior. So you need to show him that he has to give you space through spatial pressure or leash pressure, threshold respect, so waiting at doorways. He knows, and again, I have another video of that with him coming out of the car. For whatever reason, he's really like anxious in the back of my SUV. So he would try to jump out. So I have it to where he has to wait till I say it's okay. So I open the door, I tell him to stay. He has to stay there until I get his leash on, until I get his little training vest on, and I can back off and then release him out. Those things are important for him to understand for his safety and for yours, so you don't want anyone getting hurt or him bombarding you with all of his big flute things. Hi buddy, good boy. You're being so good. E-collar pressure, it's pretty similar. I'll send another video. It's gonna be with a dog named Alvin. So if you're like, well, who is this random dog? I've just been using that video to go over the mechanics of the e-collar. But the buttons that you use, they're on a continuous stem. So when you apply pressure, it's sending out a stem as long as you're holding down that button. And then when you release the button, it discontinues stem. So that's how I use pressure with the e-collar. And Mango, Mango is all over the board with as far as what levels he uses for his e-collars. In situations like this where there's not a lot going on, a 4 or 5 out of 100 gets the job done. Like he knows what it means. I don't have to use a lot of intense levels to communicate with him. He knows that a sensation on his neck means for him to do something, and when he does it, it goes away. So in the beginning when I was introducing the e-collar, I work at those low levels and low distraction so that I introduce it at a level that's more of an afterthought. He feels that he's aware that it's there, but it's not anything that's bothersome. And I layer it into existing commands that he's already learned. So if I say come at the come, I apply the pressure. When he comes to me, as soon as he turns it to me, the pressure goes away. So through repetition of that, he's learned that when the behavior is done, the pressure goes away. When we're outside, it really fluctuates. There's been times where a 5 or 6 have been just fine, and there's been times where he starts sniffing in the grass and I have to go up to 10, 15, even 20. Not so much going towards other people or dogs. I really haven't had to adjust really high, but for some reason when he gets using his nose, it's really hard to compete with that motivation. So I found that I've had to go a little bit higher. And I like to say, don't fixate on one certain level. I usually start at a lower level and I'll adjust around until I get the response that I want. Whatever level works is the level that you should use. Sorry, I just started raining really hard. Again, fluctuate it until you get the reaction that you want. What you should see is, you shouldn't be able to really even tell that he feels it. It should just be that he's responding to the request that you're asking. So he should be going into behavior that you're asking for, coming to you, going into a sit, leaving something, anything like that. You shouldn't be he shouldn't be shying away, he shouldn't be yelping. At most, you may see an ear flick, or if it's on the right muscle, the muscle will twitch a little bit, or a blink or something like that. But really, he should just be responding to the behavior that you're asking for. Hi, bud. Oh, did it scare you? I'm sorry. Place. So those are the pressures. Pressure, different forms. Really, pressure is just negative reinforcement. We're applying a pressure. The removal of the pressure rewards the behavior that we want. It reinforces so that that behavior continues. And that's the biggest reason why we don't want to prematurely remove a pressure, but we want to be conscious of the level that we are applying. So we're not overdoing it and making it a bad experience. Negative reinforcement, even the word negative means to take away. It doesn't mean negative like a bad sensation. So when we're giving him commands, we want to make sure that we are clear and direct. I want to only give the command one time, and I want that command to mean it. So I think it's frustrating and confusing for dogs when people are throwing out a bunch of words like, Mango, come over here, come sit. No, don't do that, sit. Like, that is so much stuff happening that everything becomes white noise. So when you're communicating with Mango, and this is when you're giving him commands. If you're just like being silly and talking with him and stuff, that's different. But if you're giving him commands, it should be the command, the markers, and the corrections and things like that. There shouldn't be a lot of talk because again, we don't want it to be white noise. We want him to hear something and know that it has value. I personally like to have reinforcements on deck, whether it's a toy or at least play and affection. Mango is very food motivated, so if you're going to new situations with him, I would bring food. I would bring treats for him, and I recommend having his treats be different things. So, for instance, when we're doing a recall or when we're out and we know that we're going to encounter dogs and people, I want him to, when I reinforce him, for it to be something that he cannot predict. Because if he always knows what he's going to get, he can choose what is more reinforcing in that moment. So if chasing after or going to say hi to another person is more rewarding than the one cookie that he gets every single time, he's gonna be like, I don't want to do that. If sometimes he gets a piece of cheese, sometimes he gets a couple of treats, sometimes he gets a bacon strip, I don't know, whatever. That gamble creates a little bit of a dopamine rush where he can say, I should go check in because it might be something really good and that doesn't matter as much. That is my personal recommendation. I like to always be prepared. It's such a great thing for your dog if you are able to reinforce the behaviors that you want, because all that does is strengthen those wanted behaviors, and it puts the value on you as the handler and takes it away from the things that are they're already new information, they're already reinforcing. Those things are exciting for him just because they're new information. So you have to, again, work a little bit harder to be more exciting and more rewarding than those things. I'm gonna pause this video just because I found that if I do really long videos, it takes 4 days to upload on YouTube.